Well, hello and welcome to PM Express, your favorite program on television. Indeed, it's won many awards, current affairs TV show of the year a couple of times. So neat, thanks to you, we are making waves, and now we're making even bigger waves as Ghana approaches 60. What are we doing? Having in-depth discussion as to some of the historical antecedents, things that have been missed, stories that are not told very often. And we are very fortunate to have our own Professor H.P. Matheson, who is a lover of history, a Pan-Africanist, and has taken his time to research and study, and is happy to share with us. In our last program, we sort of was looking at the Busia regime, some of the ups and downs of the Busia regime. And today I want us to open again with the Busia regime and then work our way up to the Liman regime, and on we go. And I'm sure many of you young ones, as you have told me, that, oh, Nana, I am learning a lot from these programs. Guess what? I am learning too. When I come back, I will introduce my guest. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. I am Nana Asako the Fourth, Komwedu Masahini, and also your favorite host. And with me is our favorite guest, Professor H.P. Matheson. Prof, you're welcome once again.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. I can't tell you how grateful I am for lending us your precious and busy time to educate us in things that you have learned, which is very important. A country that does not bother about its history has big questions to answer. And I must admit, we have big questions to answer. Even though I was going to jump into into the Busia thing, and since you're a historian, I just want to find out what your concerns are about not paying too much attention in history in schools, Prof.
Nana, this is a very good question you've asked at the right time. Ghana at 60. It is unfortunate that today, as we are talking, history is not being taught at the junior level. How can even some, I insist my own word, some of our politicians in parliament who happen to have done maybe sciences, physics, and other things, appreciate the dynamics of the political history of Ghana? As of today, as I'm talking, there is that bifurcation, quote and unquote, historically, of who was Dr. J.B. Dankwa, and who was Dr. Justice Akufo-Addo, and who was Pawuli and Victor Usu. Ghanaians are not aware. Ghanaians, because of their lack of knowledge, as the Bible says, my people perish. We perish historically. And so when we go to higher places like in Parliament and other places, we fail to perform. In the sense that, historically, someone will sit down today and say, oh, look at the big six. My people are there. There was not a member from Asantema. There was no member from Kwau, no member from Kumau, and so on and so forth. No member from the north. And the person will not appreciate the dynamics of history. That the time the Christianburg Crossroads, debacle happened between the ex-service men and that of Chief Superintendent, Collins H. Emery, there were only these few lawyers who were aggregated in Accra here, who could write there. But others were not around.
It doesn't mean they didn't help or didn't participate.
They did not participate. Even if, by my assertion, when we talk of what is called the big six, what do we say about the 6 people who were with Nkrumah on the rostrum during the day of the Declaration of Independence? What do we say of Chief Asamani, who was first to confront the colonial administration, locking them in and taking the keys out? Should these people not be lionized, quote and unquote? Should they not be lionized?
Even though that's not our subject, but if you're here, let me push you there. You know, the president is saying that there's been too much debate on founder or founders, and they want to bring the argument to a close. What's your position?
My position is there is a founder. But the others are statesmen, and they should be appreciated. They started it before Nkrumah was born. George Washington, people were at the vanguard, fighting, King George III, or the British. Think till George Washington came, led the Americans, and they won the independence. General de Gaulle, people were there before he came, but it's only one founder. Let us be very, very, very explicit and leave our political ideologies aside. There is only one founder. But the contributions of others like Dr. J.B. Dankwa, we cannot, deny Dr. J.B. Dankwa in history. Since 1931, 2nd November 1931, J.B. Dankwa started talking about who should be Ghana head of state. Look at his West African Times, 2nd November 1931. He had done a lot. The only difference between Dr. J.B. Dankwa and Nkrumah was who should be the leader. It's come to pass. So we cannot say that J.B. Dankwa, Edward Akufo-Addo, Pa Willie, and the rest of them should be marginalized. They should be appreciated. But when we are running this now, what should be done?
The argument, sorry to be pushing you, but the argument would be if J.B. Dankwa has been pushing this thing from 31, and indeed they were the people who went to bring Nkrumah on board, come as a secretary. Their pace was too slow, so he overtook them. Wouldn't it be safe to say founders?
No problem about that. But to say that Nkrumah's name should be marginalized.
No, I don't think anybody's marginalizing. They are trying to actually raise the others. They're not trying to bring Nkrumah down, but they'd rather bring the others also up.
Why not? Just as I was saying, they've contributed. They should be brought on board.
So on that argument, would you agree on a Founders Day as the people who founded Ghana, rather than a Founders Day meaning one person founded Ghana?
I still insist. They are not talking the founder of the country. That is the independence struggle. That is the word founder.
Yeah.
The person who actually
led
us to independence. Who was on the rostrum? To whom was the baton given? We ran a race. We say Mbo is leading, but there are 4 people there. Finally, who won the race for the group? It is this person who won the race for the group. A football team, who scored the goal? It is 11 people who contributed, but one person scores the goal. Even if it is an assist, the person who kicked in the net is one who scored the goal. So let us leave our political ideologies. This is the person who founded the independence. Period.
On that note, I'll swiftly move on to the fall of Busia. What contributed to the fall of Busia? And I want you to tie it in and educate me and my listeners on the alien compliance policy and also Apollo 568.
Good.
So we want to look at the fall of Busia and the aliens compliance and Apollo 568.
Good. Now, last week, as we stipulated, Busia failingly failed in the sense that his African foreign policy was not the best for Madagascar. But Busia was lucky. The then Minister of Foreign Affairs, that is Victor Usu, was a vibrant Pan-Africanist who held the fort for the 27 months. The PP survived. It was Victor Usu in the OAU. His assistant, that is the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, J.A. Kufuor, our former president, who also held the fort. Nana, I would wish to seize this opportunity to inform, our viewers and audience that former President J.A. Kufuor, even though Buzia failingly failed in the general foreign policy, both African and externally. But Kufuor saved Ghana.
I want to know.
How did His Excellency, the former president, save Ghana? You may recall that at the time of Nkrumah, Ghana used to do business with the then Comecon, that is the Soviet countries.
The Eastern world.
The Eastern world, precisely. And we're not paying cash, we're paying by barter. So, when the CPP fell, when Nkrumah was overthrown, it was very embarrassing for the Buzia government, because Buzia's government was deemed to be pro-West. And the substantive Minister of Foreign Affairs, that is Lawyer Victor Usu, would not wish to be humiliated in Moscow. So how do we explain our debts? So, a tripartite committee, that is a 3-man committee, was adopted. Victor Usu, Pauli, and then the late Dr. Bruce Kunwa, then MP for Tema. How they could come together, segregate, to see to it that the debts were redeemed. So it was Pauli who asked Victor Usu, Victor, you being the substantive minister, how do we face the Soviets? Victor Usu said no, he will not go, but he knows he will go. If I look at the Hansard and look at what is it called, the magazine where this is reported, I'll give the reference later on. Pauli in a Bulgar hat, that is late William Oforiata, then the substantive minister of education and sports went together, that is culture, education and sports together, said, ask Victor Usu, Victor, you won't tell us now. No. Victor replied, I will tell you when we come back to the next meeting. And the next meeting was built for Thursday. It was a Tuesday. The next meeting was a Thursday. So one Thursday, they recongregated. Victor Usu made them to understand that it was his deputy. And that was in the name of J.A. Kufuor, our former president. Pauli laughed and retorted. Pauli quoted and unquote, you mean your Victor who is as shy as a fox? Victor said yes. Then Pauli turned to Bruce Kunwa. Bruce, what is it? Well, let's wait and see. That was the reply. To cut a long story short, everything was done. Diplomatic passport from the visitor by that time, we also, J. Kufuor from London to, Moscow, Vnukovo Airport. Now, Victor did not, that is, J. Kufuor did not go directly to Moscow. He made a stop, 24-hour stop, London, and then prepared himself with some little vocabulary, vis-a-vis dialogue. He specifically, John Ajekum Kufuor, then the deputy minister, that time they say ministerial secretary, then the ministerial secretary to his boss, Victor Usu, went to the London School of Economics with a paper in hand, pen in hand, asked the one in charge of the Russian desk, if I go to a meeting in Moscow, how do I salute them? How do I say good morning or good afternoon in Russian? If they say sit down, how do I reply? And then finally, I would like you to tell me, if I want to tell them a proverb, like please give us chance because you do not know us as, Nkrumah, we shall be friends. So they put everything down. Nana, permit me tumbling over this documentation because I speak Russian. So the document, when you look at it, both this and the Hansard. So when J. Kufuor entered in the Kremlin, the first thing we told them was, Здравствуйте, that is good morning. They also answered, Здравствуйте. So they made a sit down. That one you could see when they pointed to the chair. So J. Kufuor removed the chair and said, Spasiba, thank you. in Russian. So the Russians turned and looked at one another and said, Kanyeshna, on Gavarit Paruski. That, oh, he speaks our language. He speaks Russian. J. Kufuor was preparing them. Before handing them the note verbal in diplomacy, what is the note? What the mission he has been sent to deliver. The Russians looked at it, they didn't bother to involve in a dialogue. A meeting which should have happened 5 hours, 3 hours, you know the Russians and their protocol, took only 10 minutes, according to the report.
And he quoted his program?
So, the last sentence, they were passing the paper, the note verbal he carried from Accra to Moscow, and then they were all signing. So they finished signing, 5 of them, the Russians. Then when they came back to, Deputy Minister J. Kufuor, there was a translator, a Russian interpreter, and a translator and interpreter. So they asked the interpreter. They spoke to the interpreter. That is, the Russian minister spoke to the interpreter. The interpreter turned and then asked, Minister J. Kufuor, have you got anything to say? He looked at his paper and read to them in Russian. Товарищи, извините, пожалуйста, вам сказать, чтобы надо, конечно, хорошо. Comrades, allow me to tell you that we shall get to know one another if we do business together. They clapped. Хорошо, хорошо. Он говорит по-русски. Хватит. It's okay. What type of diplomacy did His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor use? John Agyekum Kufuor, at that time, provoked a diplomacy, a type of diplomacy used by, Henry Kissinger, used by Sir Ernest Satu, used by Kayer de Kayer, used by Harold Nicholson. And what is that diplomacy? Kufuor per se, he uses it without realizing. He has a problem. The first thing he has is, what is my goal? What capacity do I use to solve this problem? How will it cost me if I fail? And what will be the risk? And so in diplomatic terms, we are the goal, capacity, cost, risk calculus in problem solving. And this is Kufuor for you. So here, Busia was lucky. He had Victor Usu, he had, Kufuor, he had Bruce Konua, and then, of course, William Oforiatta Pauli. These were the people covering up Busia during the 27 months. Other than that, his marriage of apartheid, his aliens compliance order. Then also locally here, the first time the TUC had been vandalized. Busia seized all properties of TUC. J. Mensah, who was his Minister of Economic Planning, also bastardized the economy by slapping a development levy on everything, even cocoa workers. Kayaye, everyone had to pay, a levy, special levy. Student loans was not left out. The student front, I'm sure if my good friend Kantamakulu is listening to us. Kantamakulu, who was the NUCS president, was ostracized. And NUCS was split into the original NUCS and then SANI, S-A-N-I, Students Association for National Integration. And this, then also, as I said last week, some time ago, that Busia as the one in charge of the armed forces, commander-in-chief, will never, ever involve army chiefs in taking decisions. So if a head of state, you are divorced from your armed forces, you are in for trouble. And so these were the things which brewed, boiled in the Ghana pot for coup d'etat. Even though coup will never, ever be accepted by a progressive like you, Nana, a Pan-Africanist like you, Nana, and a Pan-Africanist, and all Ghanaians. Coup d'etat should never, ever be countenance.
So that's how they slipped in. Just briefly on Apollo 568.
Apollo 568, just like what we are hearing today, people are removed from their, jobs. A new government coming. So also one Buzia took over 3rd September 1969. Before he finally took the chair, as I said last week, 1st October 1970, 568 people were sacked. So what we are hearing and seeing now, it is not a new thing. We the older ones, as senior comrade Kwesi Price will say, we have been around for a long time. We have seen it all. So here, Apollo 568, that time the Americans had their Apollo, space, machinery. So Ghanaians, ridiculously named it Apollo 568, Sputnik. And now there was something symptomatic about this situation. There was a worker with the Ghana, National Trade Corporation, GNTC, by name Mr. Salah. Salah will never agree. So he went to court. He took Buzia and the government to court. The court, incidentally, pronounced favorably on behalf of Salah. So Buzia, who had been so dovish, quote and unquote, politically, quiet gentleman, unassuming, became so hawkish, quote and unquote. Arrival at the airport from Washington, the press conference is, I quote Buzia, quote and unquote, my government, no court, Salah's case, no case. We saw it at the time of J. Kufuor, in the case of, Chaju Chikata's case, a rearrangement of this. So, what is the difference between this and that of Nkrumah's non-acceptance of the Adam Afiu's case? So all politicians are the same.
In one way or the other. Dr. Hilary Mann became the 3rd democratically elected president. Ruled for a while, got overthrown by Jerry Rawlings. But who, I want to find out how it is he got overthrown and who was Dr. Hilary Mann.
Good. Now, thank you very much. We may reword this thing there. Who removed the political agbada or batakari of Hilary Mann? Was it J.J. Rawlings who removed the political batakari? Or who? By my perception and assessment, permit me here again to opportune. I know Limam, I've worked with Limam, I've sat in Limam's green Volkswagen because he was my director, my boss in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The KBS scientist who was still alive right now. Only Limam finally went to the annex. Limam lived in Asylum Down. I was in Newtown. By that time, I was using, Renault 4. So I packed my Renault 4 and then we moved. We call him Baba. Now, let me come in. Limam was a gentleman par excellence. Laughing, very kind, but very tough. Who removed Limam's agbada? Political agbada, quote and unquote. Limam came in as a substitution. He was not the leader of the PNP. The person who created the founders and the barons of the PNP, that is the People's National Party, to have run the party, were Imoro Igala, Alaji Imoro Igala, and Mumuni Baumia, that is Dr. Mahmoud Baumia's father. But unfortunately, they were disqualified. Just as I said last week, that Buzia had in a silver platter, those who were associated with the CPP were disqualified. So, elections coming in, quickly the PNP asked Igala to make it. So, Igala handpicked Dr. Hilary Mann. So, he resigned from foreign service, living as a small boy there, and then coming to play politics. Now, why did Limam failingly fail? Limam, just like what I was referring to last week of the case of Professor Buzia, here was a Pan-Africanist. He was also a diplomat. Limam could not see both the centrifugal and centripetal forces militating against his government by November 1981. What happened? One, within the Politburo of PNP, that is the Central National Executive, or the PNP, there was this rivalry. Echo Daniels, the strongman of, as the Attorney General, resigned. Karendorf, Minister of Interior, resigned. The party was divided between, the Limam faction and that of the Osajefo faction. And the Limam faction, Limam, Professor Nabila and the rest of them, on the Limam side. Then the Osajefo faction, Alaji Mumuni Baumia, Johnny Hansen, the late Johnny Hansen, then Rollins time he became a Minister of Interior, may he rest in peace. These were with the Osajefo side. So there was this rivalry going on there. And soldiers are always looking out for opportunity. Again, here, Limam, 26th September 1979, the soldiers had handed over to Limam. That is Rollins and his AFRC had handed over to Limam. But Limam could not agree to disagree with the soldiers when it came to certain concepts like the foreign policy, defense policy, and so on and so forth. Again, here was Chacho Chikata, Fui Chikata, and Nakojo Chikata. Their shadows, quote and unquote, were being chased all over Accra to Medina. They were being followed up. Again, there was this type. Here is a Pan-Africanist, an Nkrumah's party, just like the case of Busia, tilting gingerly to apartheid, South Africa. Limam also did not realize between 1884 the concept of Reaganization vis-a-vis global politics, vis-a-vis world politics, was in vogue. And what do I mean by that? Ronald Reagan, the substantive president of the USA, was the #1 strong person. And whatever he said, when he coughed, the whole third world got cold. And he did. He coughed vis-a-vis Gaddafi's, image. And so a country which was solidly behind Gaddafi, you'll be punished. You either forget Gaddafi and then go alongside him. And Limam openly came in to the idea that the Black Star Line should not go to Tripoli to play football. They are AFCON. So, that was one of the reasons. Incidentally, Rollins came in December 31st, and the match, or the AFCON, was to take place March 1980. So hurriedly, Black Star, prepared, went in, 82. That is March 82, and brought back that cup for the 4th time since hence. So this is what the card Limam played. Again, soldiers who were suspected of being anti-Limam's, regime were chased all over. A case in point, if you look at a book I wrote, 2000, that is Politics in Ghana from Nkrumah to Rollins. If you look at page 115 of that book, I stipulated in this book that a paratrooper from Tamale, Yakubu Isifu, was arrested in at my residence at Belenkwe. Up to today, no one knows what happened to Isifu Yakubu. May he so rest in peace. So all these factors came in, and Limam was overthrown. He was not the best. Limam, for instance, if we should ask, Limam, for instance, had paid, he was a patriot, pains-loving, and he had done all that to be a nationalist. Nationalist patriotism, that was Liman.
Was the PNP an Nkrumahist party?
Nana, this is what I was alluding to. The PNP was an Nkrumahist party, 101%. But Liman, at this point in time of Reaganomics, Liman played, instead of playing Pan-Africanist card, he played that card of Pan-Yankeeism, anti-Pan-Africanism, Pan-Africanism. And that was the card Liman played. He incidentally played an Ogba political card.
Did the party disagree with the leadership style?
Precisely, and that was the reason why most of the, major apparatchiki, resigned. Like Daniel Echo Daniels, Karl Randolph, you named it.
Obviously, led to the coup d'etat. I mean, gave way for the coup d'etat.
And the coup d'etat, in fact, it was finally endorsed because by October, November, two things happened. Very, very interestingly. Let me quickly run over it. Here was the PNP National Executive going for a congress in Kumasi. And it was tabled that the then Chief Justice of the Republic, in the name of Modestus Apalu, should be sacked by Liman. Now, Liman and his party failed to realize that Apollo was already a substantive, High Court judge and could not be removed by a mere 71 majority members of PNP without the opposition, party, UNC of Pauli and the rest of them. So, there was also another factor. Another factor was what? By November 15th, 1981, a Samuel Adai Mensah, a founding member of PNP, went to the Supreme Court to put in an injunction that all senior members, senior executives of PNP should be propped. They were corrupt. This broke the back of the camel. This gave the political hiatus for coupists like J.J. Rawlings and his people to come in on that fateful 31st, December 1981.
What would your fair overall assessment of the Liman era, and how would you rate him?
I will rate Liman's era, even though he caused certain mistakes. Liman among the 12 heads of state in Ghana, that is from Nkrumah via Mama to President Nana Akufo-Addo. Liman is one of the best, apart from his African foreign policy. In the sense that during Liman's time, no one had been jailed. There had never been anyone, treated on the basis of xenophobia or pepephobia. This man is a northerner. This is how we should treat him. That's what I refer to as pepephobia. This one is an equapim. This is how we should treat him. That's what I refer to as xenophobia. Liman did not know color or tribe. And in fact, if you should ask me, what would be the recommendation for Liman?
On that note, based on the recommendation, let me just take a quick break. Sometimes I even forget. It gets so exciting, I forget. Take a quick break and we come back and look at the recommendations for Liman. Don't move. Thank you very much for staying, and we are back still talking to Professor H.P. Mattison. Prof.
Yes, sir.
You were talking about the recommendations for Liman.
Nana, quickly.
Belated recommendation.
Nana, quickly. Posthumously, I will believe that the government today, our president, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, should name the International Conference Center after Liman. Why? This was a conferencier. He had specialized in international diplomacy, vis-a-vis conferences. He had done all that is needed to develop and motivate intelligence within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I'm speaking as someone who was an insider. And as I said, if you ask me, what exactly is intelligence? Intelligence, as I always say, It is not a cure for stupidity or a substitute for wisdom. Anything necessary to make a government move ahead or a military general to win wars. And Limam was winning when he was in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He was a diplomat par excellence, a first-class diplomat, a cliff dweller, A1 diplomat.
A good
and
writer.
He has served his country.
A very good writer.
Yeah. Very, very, very prolific writer. And someone, I should say, the first person to have been in Sorbonne, where I'm proud of now as an alumnus. Limam was in Sorbonne before I went to Sorbonne. You will see Limam's works in Sorbonne, especially Paris 4. Sorbonne, you know, Paris 1, Paris up to Paris 20. And this is Limam for you. He was an intellectual and academic par excellence.
With the pressures of Reaganism, could he have resisted at the time? Sometimes it's easier said than done. I mean, these are the big boys. They are giving you your aid, and you're going to say, no, forget it. I'm going to go with Gaddafi, whom the world press is demonizing and criticizing. It's very easy to shun and...
Now, I'm coming very quickly. You may recall, sometime on this same platform, I made you to understand that as late back as 23rd July 1990, I always pride to state. I was with the late Ofuibonye. Mandela had arrived, Cote d'Ivoire. That was somewhere in February. So when I met Ofoe July, I asked, here was a Pan-Africanist. You, Ofoe, had been known to be pro-West. When Mandela leaving, you know, prison, he flew to Tripoli, from Tripoli to your side. Why? We laughed and told me, my son, you know, getting to the end of he spoke, you know, nasally, you know, an old man, 90-something plus. Mon fils, vous me permettez de vous dire que oui, nous sommes politiciens, mais quand même, des temps, on donne à gauche, on prend à droite. My son, let me tell you, we are politicians. By the time when you are dealing with the Western world, you give something to the liberators with the left and then shake hands with the right or the, you know, Westerners. This invariably saying that Félix Houphouët-Boigny was underground founding liberating fighters without the knowledge of the Western world. And at the same time, he was dining and dancing adwa with the Western world. So, to answer your question, Limam should have done this thing gingerly with some circumspection, because as a former diplomat. But he overtly and covertly did everything with the encouragement of Shehu Shagari, who was representing the Western world. So that's how Limam failed. Briefly,
Rawlings was very good at that. Very briefly.
Yeah, Rawlings, as I said, he was someone. He uses strategy, stratagem.
Tilapia busumana.
Yeah, this is a tilapia busumana. He meanders, and he uses strategy, stratagem, and political deception.
That can dive into everywhere. Now this is a very interesting one because both Liman and Mahama are both from the north, all pro Nkrumah, and coincidentally both only could not finish their prescribed term, if I may say, their 8-year term. You think there's any correlation?
Well, by my perception, I use the word advisable perception. First and foremost, Mama's, what is it called, failure. If you should ask me, what was Mama's destiny? His Excellency President Mama, today, tomorrow, I will raise my hand and give you 101%. Not only looking at the infrastructure, from where he had come. When I say from where, the political safari, the political journey, the political zebra crossings and the T-junctions, he has passed. He's done his best. But what is his fault? Wrong people were around him. He brought people surrounding him, selling, quote and unquote, selling his ideas, selling him out. But people who were prepared to work for him honestly, they could not get to him. Nana, I'll use your platform. 2 books I've written about Mama. Election 2012, the Mama Magic. And the other one, can Mama win election 2016?
When did you write that one?
Before the elections.
And what was your conclusion in there?
The conclusion was, I quoted Israeli President Moshe Dayan, 1954, who when asked, would the Buhari in your government, can you win the election? He said, yes. The general will always win the war if politicians and journalists do not obstruct him. So I said, just as I'm saying, if the people around Mama, both his political apparatchiki and Nachalniki, were correct, quote and unquote, and the people surrounding him he took as friends, especially the media friends, were the correct people, he would have survived. Because Mama would have not even known. How do we know? Whether it was a regime change was already prepared. As I said here the other time, he launched his book in the UN, talked about the dead, what is it called, chicken being brought in here. Nkrumah launched his book there in the UN and talked about the same thing. Nkrumah was thrown to Hanoi by the Western world. The same Western world made Mama and someone, a woman, Norwegian or New Zealand, former prime minister, to foresee something on behalf of the UN. I've forgotten their assignment. Could it not be a regime change? Could it not be the other people? So also Hilal Imam. There is no government since independence. Now, if you take, in a book, especially my own books, to look at the cabinet formation of Hilal Imam. So fantastic. PhD, this, lawyer, this, journalist, this. The only unfortunate thing with Hilal Imam, which cannot be compared to Mama, unlike, Buzia. I forgot to establish. Another failure of the Buzia this thing there, Buzia's cabinet of 24 ministers, deputy ministers of 70, not a single woman. Could Buzia have been suffering from pueraphobiasis? Fear of woman, quote and unquote. So also Hilal Imam. Hilal Imam cabinet, no woman, but deputy ministers. He had Mrs. Irenchi, Gloria Irenchi, and then Mrs. Adisa Mukale, in fact, my former Tamasco English teacher. They were deputy ministers. So Mama's this thing was, Mama and then this surrounding people.
With the wrong people.
Wrong people. And then most of the ministers there, getting to the time of the election, they were, most of them, I won't say all, most of them were. But then, Mama was lucky, I never ever not see a vibrant, hardworking, and a man of posture like his, chief of staff, Honorable Julius Deborah. Anyone coming in contact with Deborah, you give him an A+. This is a man of substance. I would recommend him everywhere.
From Nkrumah via Buzia through to Liman, how far did we come?
Nkrumah to Buzia via Liman. All that I will say here is Ghana, for this point in time, First Republic to Third Republic, there had been so many political T-junctions vis-a-vis coup d'etats. Thanks to God, we entered the Fourth Republic and we're still there, no coup d'etat. A government cannot progress if there are coup d'etats. And Ghana, our present decament, our present ailment is the various coup d'etats, especially the coup d'etat of 66.
Is that the most damaging in your...
The most damaging, disgraceful, permit me for my word, inhuman, because many people lost lives. Many people lost lives. Then I'm talking because that time I left the military academy, I was already in Moscow as a student. So I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking at a mature age. Many people died. And always because this coup d'etat was not, organized by our own military, but by external forces. So to summarize up, from Nkrumah up to today, Ghana wouldn't have been in this situation. Perhaps if Nkrumah was given the chance to finish his tenure of office.
Could we have been able to stomach his, one-party state system?
That is a very good question. Nana, your question is coming belatedly. It is people who are not initiated, people who are naive, who, come out to point to the PDA Preventive Detention Act. Nkrumah's time, what is worse than what we are experiencing now? The invisible forces. What are they doing to human beings? What are they? The PDA, the Preventive Detention Act, as I stipulated here some time ago, was initiated by Nkrumah 14 July 19, but he was not the one who had the aura of jurisprudence. It was the colonial governor, that is Sir Noble Aden Clark. Within 4 days, 18 July 1958, Sir Noble Aden Clark passed it to supersede which was already invoked by the colonial administration, PDL, Preventive Detention Law. And even then, coming to the AFRC, coming to the NLC.
Before we go to the NLC, because of time, in 30 seconds, in the Fourth Republic now, have we matured past coup d'etats? 30 seconds.
I believe Ghana is so mature that no military man should ever dream, I repeat, of making a coup d'etat. He will be disgraced. In the sense that the coupists, the coup makers were lucky because there was only one GBC. So once you seize GBC, you see the whole of Ghana. Accra here, if I'm not wrong, we have over 200, radio stations. So which radio station are you going to talk? And others will not sabotage you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for watching. This is how we do it. But in the next episodes, we'll now be looking at the Fourth Republic dispensation, how it is, how it's going. Can we continue this year, this strong division where it's either MPP or NDC? Can we develop the country like that? But Prof will share all his insights of our political history with us. It's been great, it's been wonderful, and I say happy 60th to one and all. Prof, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
And thanks for accepting me.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.